It's Britain's most valuable race meeting, while it's one of the most prestigious and historic meetings anywhere in the world. Royal Ascot for 2019 gets started next Tuesday. Here's what we've got in store for you on this edition of HK Direct. And for the first time, we'll be taking all 5 days of Royal Ascot here in Hong Kong. Graham Cunningham is in the studio to let us know what we can look forward to next week. Graham, thanks for joining us again on the show. 8 Group 1s, 30 races across 5 days, plus some big handicaps for all types of racing fans. Royal Ascot has it all.
Great to be here, Edward. And we've got a lot to get through today, so let's give you the magic numbers. 5 days, 5 consecutive days, 30 races, 8 Group 1s, 8 Group 2s, over $70 million in prize money, over 300,000 racegoers, star Group 1 performers from Europe, from America, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Singapore, and, really interestingly, a very significant betting development with Hong Kong at the centre that could really give us a great idea of the direction of travel for international wagering. Fantastic week in store. Yes,
we'll get to that development and the betting side of things later on in the show, because it is particularly significant, especially for us here in Hong Kong. But if you're tuning in to Royal Ascot next week, all 5 days will be covered here in Hong Kong. Graham's in the co-host chair with Andrew Lejeune, myself, Tom Wood, Brett Davis, sharing the duties with him. 5 days of wonderful racing. The first race each night gets started at 9:30, 6 races each night. Now, Graham, your job has been to pick out the highlight for each day. So let's start from the very beginning then, and we're going to go to the King's Stand Stakes for this year by looking back at the King's Stand Stakes from last year. Batash was beaten in it by Blue Point, but punters this year expect Batash to turn the tables after what he did at Haydock.
Exactly. Fantastic start on day one. We have 3 Group 1 races. The King's Stand is one of them. And we pick up last year's principles, and one circle, we'll do them all here. Godolphin Blue on the right is Blue Point. Blue striped cap and white is Batash, and the red Mabs Cross. Roll it, Maestro. Let's run through what happened in this race. Batash is explosive, and he probably shot his bolt a little too early. He went really hard, very aggressively. He'll be ridden a bit more patiently. Blue Point, picture perfect. He got the perfect draw into the race in this occasion. And red Mabs Cross, we shouldn't forget her, slightly chopped the speed. Then she comes home strongly. The great thing is, twofold, all 3 are back, and all 3 are in tremendous form. So the key point here, this time around, Batash will be ridden slightly differently. Will he be able to delay his finishing effort to maximum effect, because he faces 2 crackerjack rivals in Blue Point and Mabs Cross?
Well, Blue Point's 3 from 3 this year. You've got to give him credit for that performance last year, Blue Point, because he came into the race after things didn't go right for him here in Hong Kong. Is Batash the type of horse that when he's good, he's very good, but he can be a bit hit and miss through the course of his career?
That is 100% accurate. Blue Point is super efficient. His preparation has been silky smooth in Dubai this spring. Mabs Cross has shown she's at least as good as ever. But Batash is the ale or jail, all or nothing horse. When he's good, he's absolutely tremendous. His very best is slightly better than Blue Point's or Mabs Cross. He thrashed Mabs Cross getting away to Haydock last time. So it all revolves around whether Jim Crowley can get him perfectly settled next week. If he can, Batash could be the one to get the meeting off to a flyer.
Let's move on to Wednesday then, and to the Prince of Wales's stakes, over 2,000 metres. Sea of Class had an excellent year last year, winning the Irish Oaks, the Yorkshire Oaks. The barrier was against her in the Arc. This is the Arc where she finished second behind the champion mare, Enable. And you also have wider on the track here too, Magical, who finished out of the placings in this race, but then ran creditably at the Breeders' Cup, and she's 3 from 3 in Ireland this year.
This is a fantastic race. It was the highest-rated race in Britain last season. It could be again. Sea of Class was definitely unlucky in the Arc. Hats off to Enable. She wins the race for the 2nd time. But drawn 15, last into the straight, and charging home, she gains on Enable all the way to the line under James Doyle. An unlucky loser in the Arc, and she's been put on layaway ever since. Next Wednesday will be her first run since the Arc. By contrast, Magical has been a very, very busy girl. She's hard fit and better than ever after 3 runs this season. Runaway Group 1 win in Ireland last time. And on today's new Longines World's Best Racehorse rankings, she's nosed her way into the top 5. Beauty Generation still joint top, by the way. She's now rated 123 Magical. That makes Magical a danger to all. But we also have Crystal Ocean, high-quality older horse for Michael Stout. We also have last year's Derby winner, Massar. So this is a tremendous race, potentially the race of the week. For what it's worth, I quite like Magical as the fit, hard horse, still improving, and I certainly wouldn't put anyone off Crystal Ocean, who's definitely good enough to go close.
To Thursday we go, and to the Gold Cup for the stayers, and what a race this is going to be. Stradivarius over the last 12 months or so has proven himself as the best stayer in the UK, but there's a new kid on the block, the Melbourne Cup winner, the Gold Cup winner in Dubai. Cross counter. There
are a couple of new kids on the block. Gold Cup's a very unusual race for Hong Kong racing fans to look at. It's 4,000 metres. It takes 4 minutes 20 to win it. It asks top-class thoroughbreds a question that very few of them can really answer and excel over that sort of distance. And I think that's why the Gold Cup is a race that produces repeat winners time and time again. Horses who've won it twice, like Royal Rebel. Horses who've won it 3 times. Horses who won it 4 times, like Yates. Stradivarius is trying to win it for the 2nd time, and he's a fascinating horse because he always opens the door for you briefly. He comes off the bridle, he looks a little flat-footed briefly, and then he shuts it in your face because he is a high-class, relentless stayer.
He did win well at York last time out. Cross counter, though, as a 3-year-old to win a Melbourne Cup, I know he had the lightweight, but still, that's no mean feat. And he proved himself that he's back in form with what we saw in Dubai World Cup night.
Absolutely. He is a young, up-and-coming horse and dangerous if he gets the 2.5 miles. That is the big question for him. It's the big question for DXB, who has really improved this year since he finished 2nd in last year's Derby. And we should also mention Kew Gardens for Aidan O'Brien and Coolmore. This is a classic winner, a very emphatic winner of a good St Ledger, and 2nd, really good 2nd in the Coronation Cup. The one thing we know about Stradivarius, he will relish every single inch of 2.5 miles. He has some new shooters to contend with, the likes of DXB, the likes of Kew Gardens, the likes of Cross Counter. Should be a hell of a race. Kew Gardens is the horse I think is most likely to put it up to Stradivarius. OK, well, it was a hell of a race last year when we saw Stradivarius beating Vizirabad, Torsador. That was a thrilling finish amongst those 3, and 12 months on, it looks every bit as good on paper. Let's go on to the Friday. The Commonwealth Cup is one of the new additions to the Royal Ascot meeting. Going into the Guineas, one of the doubts with 10 Sovereigns, the horse we're about to highlight here, was whether he would get the mile. What was the conclusion coming out of the Guineas? My conclusion is that he didn't truly stay the trip, but there might be more to 10 Sovereigns than meets the eye. Remember, this is one of the horses who's going to be one of the shortest price favourites of the week. And Ryan Moore was on board. He was 9-4 favourite for the 2,000 Guineas, but he'd never gone beyond 6 furlongs before. He comes to lead the group in the centre of the track, as you can see. But keep a close eye on his body language, Edward. The head's a bit high and proud. He starts to edge right into the whip at this point. That's not a good sign for my money. His stablemate on the near side, Magna Graecia, goes on and wins emphatically. 10 Sovereigns will be a very, very short price. I'm keen to oppose him. The news of the last week or two has been negative for a couple of his main rivals. Calix is injured. Sadly, Lady Kaya sustained a fatal injury. That suggests that 10 Sovereigns ought to be mighty hard to beat. But I'm going to toss in an angle that not many people have mentioned for 10 Sovereigns. I think he might be slightly tricky. 6 furlongs at Ascot looks better for him than a mile at Newmarket. But that high head carriage, the way he edged right and the way he faded late, they just sound some, at least minor, alarm bells for me. OK, have you found something that could beat him at a price? Jash ran him very close in the Middle Park last autumn. He won in just workmanlike fashion at the start of this season. But he's a pretty high-class horse, and there's a horse from Yorkshire, Kevin Ryan trains, called Hello Yumzane, who's very quick, very smart. It'll be a big field. 10 Sovereigns will be many people's banker. He won't be mine. You mentioned the international element of Royal Ascot before, and we saw it in last year's Diamond Jubilee Stakes. We had a former Australian horse, Merchant Navy, win the race for Ireland, beating City Light from France, an American horse in 3rd. City Light's back, trying to go one better 12 months on. City Light's back. second last year. Bound for Nowhere, third last year, he's back. The Tin Man, previous winner of this race, finished fourth, and he's back again. So a bit like the Kingstown Stakes, the sprinters last, they endure, and some of the key players from 12 months ago are back again.
Can City go one better? How does this sort of Diamond Jubilee stand up compared with last year?
Well, he is in good form. He's had just one run. He's clearly been trained with Royal Ascot in mind. He was second to a horse called Inns of Court. Hong Kong racegoers will remember Inns of Court. He came to take on the Mighty Beauty generation in the Hong Kong Mile. He went off at 160 to 1, and I think he finished last. But Andre Farbes reinvented him as a 6 furlong, 5 furlong horse this year. He's been a revelation. He beat City Light, and he beat him quite narrowly, but quite tidily. We also have new shooters like Invincible Army. This is a horse who's really clicked this season. He has won at Ascot in the past. He was really good in the Duke of York Stakes last time. High quality 6 furlong race. Last year's principles are back, and they're back with solid chances. But definitely keep an eye on 2 horses who are new to this race. 1, Invincible Army, and 2, Inns of Court.
This is a meeting through the years, through many, many years, has generated so many memorable moments. I'm going to put you on the spot, but we've had a look at 5 possible highlights. What do you think 2019's Royal Ascot meeting's most memorable moment will be?
Well, it's a very, very long week, and it's an especially long week if you don't get off to a decent start. So I'll try and get us off to a decent start. 3 Group 1s on day 1. We've touched on the Kingstown Stakes. I'll have a quick look at the other 2. In race 1, the Queen Anne Stakes, the Queen of the North, they call this filly, Lawrence. She ran a great race for second behind Mustachery in the Lockinge Stakes at Newbury. I'm trying to think slightly outside the box, thinking she won't be quite so well known as the Stout horses, Godolphin horses, Coolmore horses, and the Hong Kong Tote might just underestimate her. Race 1, day 1, Lawrence. And less obvious, but a major chance, Phoenix of Spain was dominant in the Irish Guineas a few weeks ago. He reopposes with horses like Too Darn Hot, last year's champion 2-year-old, Scardu, Decrypt, etc. But he won by 3 lengths, full value for 3 lengths. So day 1, flying start, hopefully, with Phoenix of Spain and maybe Lawrence as well.
Let's expand on a point that you made earlier on as well, too, when it comes to the betting side of things, particularly significant for us here in Hong Kong, because the Hong Kong Jockey Club, together with Ascot and the Tote Pool, have launched the Ascot World Pool. 2 questions in one for you. What exactly is it, and why is it important?
What it is fascinating. It is, quite simply, a global pool where various major racing nations can bet into the same pool for those 30 Royal Ascot races, and it revolves around Hong Kong, clearly, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the USA, and of course, Europe. So it's going to be very significant as to how much money goes into the pool and which direction it heads in. I think the bets in the World Pool are the straightforward ones: the Win, the Place, the Quinella, and the Quinella Place, which is a perfect fit for some of those big races at Royal Ascot. So I'm fascinated by this, with Hong Kong at the technological hub and all those major racing nations betting into the same pools. I think it could be really significant for the future of global wagering. Every time you get a big international race meeting simulcast into Hong Kong, you're expecting something to go boom. But this year, with the World Pool, it could even be a kaboom.
It could indeed. It's a really interesting initiative for Royal Ascot for 2019. This is a meeting that Hong Kong horses have had success in the past. Back in 2005, it was Cape of Good Hope winning the Golden Jubilee Stakes when the meeting took place at York. More recently, though, Little Bridge tasted success when he won the 2012 Kingstown Stakes under the riding of Zach Purton.
We're all set. The Kingstown Stakes, 5 furlongs, 23 runners.
It's always hard when you're travelling overseas and you're putting yourself up against horses that you haven't raced against previously, but I went over there with a bit of confidence actually, because the start before he'd carried a big weight here up the straight. He'd won well and he'd run a decent time. I thought he was in very good form.
Now, Masama's got upset in the stalls. Masama, who was alongside Joy and Fun, or very close, and it looks as if they may be trying to back Masama out, because Masama may have got so upset that they want the horse examined.
Normally when they take a horse out of the gate here in Hong Kong, you know, they have to discuss with the vet whether it's going to be scratched, and that takes some time. Then they've got to put the red flag up, and that takes some time. So I went to get off my horse and just rest on the side of the gate. Frankie next to me said, "You better get on that horse. As soon as he comes out, we'll go." And no sooner had I put my feet back in the irons and grabbed the reins, the gate's open. So I was lucky Frankie was next to me.
And they're off and racing, and they've gone without Masama. Secret Asset, one of the first to show on the near side with a more proper, and Stone of Folker also showing up well as they make their way up the centre of the racecourse. Little Bridge is quite prominent over on the far side.
The start was what won in the race. He really flew out of the gates and put himself in a great spot on the big, travelling comfortably right from the get-go, and I'm sure that was a big asset for him.
It's Little Bridge for Hong Kong, who leads the King's Stand from bated breath. Soul Power trying to come home strongly for Ireland, but driven out towards the line. It's Little Bridge for Zach Burton. It's going to win for Danny Shum, the King's Stand for Hong Kong.
It was an historic day, really. And the first Hong Kong trained horse to win at Royal Ascot at Ascot. So once again, I'll look back on that once I retire, and you know, the photo's up on the wall, so I get to remind myself every day about how nice that trip was.
He was a horse, Little Bridge, that Zach Purden had a fantastic association with. That 2012 meeting, Graham, not only Little Bridge, but just before him, Frankel won the Queen Anne by 11 lengths, So You Think won the Prince of Wales's Stakes. Black Caviar for Australia won the Diamond Jubilee in thrilling circumstances. What a meeting that was.
And a day like that, a meeting like that, absolutely emblematic of what makes global racing, international top-class racing, such a seductive brand. It'd be fantastic to see some more Hong Kong horses, Hong Kong sprinters go over there. We know from Cape of Good Hope and Little Bridge that they stack up extremely well. So no, great memories, and talk about a hit-and-run journey for Zach. Straight in, straight out with the King's Stand Trophy.
Gold Fun went close a few years ago in the final day sprint to the Diamond Jubilee. So Hong Kong horses have certainly proven themselves on the hallowed turf of Ascot. So much to look forward to next week. But before we get to Royal Ascot, we've got Sha Tin on Sunday, a big 11-race card with a Sports Club Diamond Jubilee Challenge Cup is the trophy race. The highest class race is a Staunton Handicap, a Class 2 over the mile. For more information, not only on Sunday's card, but on what we've got coming up from a Hong Kong point of view with Royal Ascot, go to the website and also to Twitter. But that's all we've got time for on this edition of HK Direct. Graham, we've given viewers a little bit of an insight into what we can look forward to at Royal Ascot next week, but on all 5 days you'll be on the coverage to give us the full insight into what to look forward to.
Stamina test, but spectacular race meeting, so many possibilities. I'll bring the sandwiches. Don't forget to bring your top hat.
I'll make sure I do that, particularly on the Saturday when I'm joining you. Thanks to Graham.
Thanks, Ed.
And thanks to you for joining us on this edition of HK Direct. Make sure you tune in to Royal Ascot and also to the show this time next week when Sam Agars from the South China Morning Post is our special guest. He'll be with me to preview the final 2 group races for the season here in Hong Kong. We look forward to your company then. Until then, though, it's goodbye.